Welcome to Rivals. John Kirwan, also known as Mr. Magoo. And if you can hear that noise with Victor Matfield, he's in a mine in Rustenburg, and there's a big machine going past. But welcome. Have you got over the whole argument about bomb squads and red cards yet?
No, I think John's agreeing with me that the bomb squad's probably the best thing that's happened to rugby in the last 20 years.
I'm not agreeing with you, Victor. I'm not agreeing with you.
JK, do you remember Mr. Magoo on television?
Ricardo, leave the fashion to me. You've got a different coloured striped shirt on. I'm not going to answer your fashion questions every week. I'm going to take you shopping.
It was just a comment about television. This week, there was a pretty dramatic penalty kick shootout in the URC. So did you watch that, Victor? What did you think of it?
Yeah, it's a first for me. It was quite exciting. Something different, something we haven't seen. I don't know how is it going to work. Will they use 6 different kickers and then they actually pick 3 guys and 3 different spots and then go a bit further? Unfortunately, Sharks pulled it through. Kicking 6 out of 6 under that pressure couldn't have been easy. And the funny thing for me was they had the left and a right footer, and they actually used the left footer kicker from the left and the right from the other. I would thought it's the other way around because normally that's the easier kick for the kickers. But something different. And I think the people really enjoyed it. I think they enjoyed it, especially in Durban, because they won it. But something different, and hopefully, maybe we'll see it again.
Yeah, I think it's good. I think it's great. The only thing I would say is I've only seen it once before, Victor, and that was for a club final way back in the day when there was 15 All Blacks on the field. I think it was University against Ponsonby, and you had to nominate 6 players, which I think ended up I think there was a hooker. The Ponsonby hooker ended up taking the shot. So, I think. We see it a lot in football just because it draws often, but, I think it's great because there's no other alternative, really. What can you do? Toss a coin? I don't think that's fair. It brings into the skills of the game. So, there's a bit of gamemanship too, and that's an interesting word because when you talk about passion, some people call it gamesmanship, some people call it cheating, but I don't think it really affected the game, but it certainly got a few people irate about going down with cramp in front of the kicker and stuff.
Yeah, but and again, we always talk about knowing the laws, and I think the Sharks were really clever. They had the young kid on the bench that haven't been on the field, and then probably about 2 minutes or a minute before the game ended, they put him on and took Mampimpi off, and he's also a very good kicker, and he used it, and he kicked 2 very difficult kicks, especially the last one, which he had to kick to win the game, kicked it over. So again, knowing what will happen when after extra time, how will it work, was very important for the Sharks, and they did well to get that kid on the field.
So you referred to the cramping up of Hendrikse, JK. There's been quite a bit of controversy after that. What did you think about all the controversy, Victor?
Yeah, knowing Jaden, he probably thought he can put a little bit more pressure on the kicker. He did cramp, definitely, but he could probably have walked 5 meters further and then get it rubbed out. But I think, like anyone know, under that pressure situation, the longer you have to wait, the longer you have to think about it, the harder it probably gets. So probably a little bit of gamemanship, and then the little wink for the guys that take your time, calm down, you will have the kick. But we talked about it. If you look at the past, some of the best captains, Sean Fitzpatrick, George Cregan, John Smith, they all had that little bit of gamemanship where they try and influence, put a bit more pressure maybe on the ref or the other team. And sometimes they get away with it. Sometimes the ref will tell them to go back to their team and just be the captain and not trying to be the ref. But that's part of the game, and that's what makes the game interesting.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm seeing a lot more in the game. So what I believe needs to happen is we need to understand whether World Rugby is actually going to do something about gamemanship, right? So I'm seeing a lot more, you would have seen it also, Victor. Someone gets cleaned out in a ruck and they might hit their head, and instead of falling backwards, they fall back and throw their arms. You might see a little bit of exaggeration, trying to milk a penalty. So I think World Rugby needs to make some decisions on whether it is actually a real case or not a real case. Otherwise, we're going to see more of it, and we're going to end up like football, where I think if one thing that would annoy us, and I love football, don't get me wrong, would be the faking, the rolling, right, trying to get a penalty. So I think we now need to understand that gamemanship and where it sits in our game and what's acceptable. Because I believe if someone throws a fake and you go back and the TMO goes, look, that guy, threw a fake, then, should they be penalised rather, or should the penalty be turned around? Because otherwise, it is just going to, as the competition and the tournaments become more important, more money, then we're going to see more of it. And I just think we need to make some moral decisions on whether we want it in our game or not. I'm pretty relaxed about the gamemanship. I'm pretty sure he had cramp, and Russie sent that photo of him cramping. The gamemanship was winking, and where he went down. So unless World Rugby makes some decision, it'll just keep growing and be part of our game.
Yeah, I hate the diving these days, and I think actually all players get coached by the coaches. Whenever you carry the ball and there's head contact, you need to go down, you need to lie, because that put attention to the TMO to go have a look at it again. And I hate it as well. John, I'm with you on that. What you don't want to do, and that's the difference, I think, between diving and gamemanship, and trying to influence the flow of the game, or maybe try and influence the referee. You don't want to take the characters out of the game. I mean, George Gregan, he was a character because of how he were on the field. Sean Fitzpatrick from New Zealand, same thing as a captain. He just had a certain way on the field where, with whatever he did, he influenced the game. A Bakkies Botha was the same at some stage. Maybe a little bit dirty, but he could influence stuff on the edge, but trying to get away with it. So I still think we need the character, and Jaden is one of those guys. If you know him off the field, he doesn't say a word. Once he gets on the field, he's the most irritating guy you'll ever see if you play against him. But he tries to get under the skin of other players. He try and influence them, put them under pressure. So I'm not sure if you want to take out that characters out of the game. Yes, we don't want diving, and we don't want to become like soccer where everyone falls over when he just gets touched. And unfortunately, with the new laws, all of them are starting to get there. But that gamemanship, that characters that you see on the field, I would still like to see them on the field.
If you're going to take out the people that are sort of using a bit of gamesmanship and pushing the referees and winking and carrying on, we're not going to have any halfbacks on the field whatsoever, and probably no hookers. Right. So you got to let them in. There's a lot of news around at the moment about there's talk of a new league in rugby. I think it's called R360, where they're talking about 12 professional teams, owned by high-profile owners, doing a travelling circuit around the world. What do you guys think? Does the game need another breakaway competition?
I think New Zealand and South Africa need it, because maybe if we had that, then we'd retain Richie Mo'unga. For me, it's like the cricket. At the moment, there's a few of us countries, and mainly South Africa and New Zealand, we are suffering from the global economy. So all our players are getting attracted to Japan, France, and probably the UK. And so we can't retain our players. If there was the IPL, the Indian League, where it's a 6-week competition away from, and we can retain all our top players, I can't see a problem with it, because at the moment, teams like South Africa and New Zealand, although it hasn't affected South Africa as much as us, because they don't have the same play home, play for the All Blacks law, but I can see it having a space if it's going to help some teams economically.
Well, I spoke to a few of the senior players in South Africa, and it was last year November. It sounded like most of the guys has signed with this league. If it happens, they would like to play it. And I think in any sport, if you look at the IPL, it changed the face of cricket. I mean, all of a sudden in South Africa, all the young kids want to play cricket because they get paid so much more than rugby players. So if guys were there close 50-50 in the old days, everyone would have played rugby. Now, because of the financial impact the IPL has, everyone goes to cricket. Live tour. Yes, there's a lot of talk about it, but again, put more money into the sport to develop the sport as well. So I think for rugby it will be great. I know there's maybe a little fight between the IRB and this breakaway league. If the guys go play there, then they can't play international rugby, and that's one thing we don't want. We still want to see our best players playing international rugby. So yes, if they can sort that out, put more money in the game. I think for old players as well. I mean, I spoke to a guy like Jacques Collins that earned almost the same amount just going to the IPL to go coach for 6 weeks, help the batsmen. And I mean, so for the sport, it's so good. Old players, current players, and the sport will grow. So yeah, if they can pull it off, but we don't influence our international game, then I think it will be great.
I hope World Rugby has sat down and spoken to these guys. I had a guy contact me about 18 months ago, and that was the first question I said is like, if we can bring more money into the game, and me, selfish as a New Zealander, if we can retain our top players, then I can't see an issue with it. But we want them playing international football, full stop.
I mean, JK, that's why I think South Africa is using Japan that well. I mean, they don't play too many games. They go over, they play 10 games, they're fresher. So when they get to the Springboks, they haven't overplayed. They haven't. It's not like in France or the UK where you play 30 games for your clubs. They want every ounce from that play because they play them so well. So I think if you can get a league like this, players really get paid well. We grow the game globally. And those guys will be fresher when it comes to international rugby. Can be great.
New Zealand would have to let them be selected. So we'd need a attitude change towards that, which is discussed every year in New Zealand, especially when Richie Mwanga wins MVP and wins it two in a row for Toshiba.
And don't throw Ralph Frizzell, eh? He's playing fantastic rugby as well.
Yeah, totally.
Obviously, you guys are both positive about this new league, which I'm guessing means that they put big fat contracts in front of you. So, what PR or sort of, so.
Not at all, Ricardo. That's offensive. Ricardo, that's offensive.
I actually don't think it's that offensive. I think if you look at how many of our top players go into coaching, I think we miss out on some of the best coaches because it's just not worth for the guys to stay in rugby afterwards. If you can get a league like this where coaches, everyone involved, really get paid well, I think we'll see some of the big names staying in the game, getting involved, and being around it. So I think, especially for old players that want to be in the game, but it's just not worth it to be in the game financially, I think it's going to be great.
The only reason I'm in favour is because I want to see we need to look at alternatives for retaining our players in New Zealand. We need to talk to the government about tax cuts for rugby players or artists or whatever for 10 years. We just need to look at the problem differently because we are losing too many players in their prime that are trying to look after their future, and good on them. But we need to look at the problem differently, and this is an alternative for me.
And we need to get money into the game so that guys can really retire after they're done playing. I think we're so far behind football. We're so far behind cricket now with the IPL. So we need something that we can get our top players earning the same amount as some of the top football and some of the top cricket players.
No, I haven't been approached. To answer your question. I'm way too old to be approached, Ricardo. I'm way too old to be approached. So no, I haven't been approached.
Well, talking about someone that's retired, and it's a special day for him, one of the greats of our game and a great friend, the very old Sean Fitzpatrick. What are you now, 50, 51, 52?
Well, I was born in 1963, Ricardo. I know JK might struggle to work that out, but I'm 62 today.
Great way to celebrate your birthday by spending it with a South African. So Victor's here.
Hello, Victor.
Shawnee. Happy birthday, my friend.
Thank
Only
you,
getting
Butch.
younger, looking fantastic.
We are. I'm feeling very good, actually. It's a nice day here in London.
You must take more ice baths than John do at the moment because he doesn't look that great.
Victor, like, mate, I'll tell you a little story about Sean Fitzpatrick. He came down to New Zealand this summer, and the first thing he did was jump straight into an ice bath, mate. I'm telling you, man, you've got to get into it.
I'm telling Sean has definitely taken some brandy and cokes as well. That's why. I think that's actually the secret.
No, I highly recommend it, Victor.
Fitzy, we thought we'd get you on here and just talk. You know, you've got such a love-hate relationship with South Africa over the years, but like they used to hate you, but now they quite like you when you go and visit.
Yeah, I suppose that's one of the nice things about our sport, isn't it? You know, we compete on the field, and then when we go off the field, we enjoy a beer together or whatever, and just get on with it. But yeah, I have such fond memories of South Africa. You know, it's one of those places that JK and I, when we were in the All Blacks in the sort of 80s, we never thought we'd go to South Africa. And in 1992, it was a dream come true. And just, you know, looking back at that 92 tour, you know, that 96 tour, and obviously 95. And that's the wonderful thing now, JK. We've got Victor on the podcast, but some of my dearest friends, believe it or not, are former foes from South Africa.
I think that's a really interesting point. Is that what makes the greatest rivalries? Is it that ability to dislike each other for 80 minutes? Does that create a better relationship afterwards?
Yeah, I think so. We didn't. We were always careful, weren't we, in terms of, you know, South Africa, you know, Australia in the late 80s, early 90s were a phenomenal team. They really challenged us, and we didn't really get too close to each other because we didn't want them to know what we were really like. And that's the nice thing being retired now. You know, the Michael Liners of the world, Nick Farr-Jones, Phil Kearns, you know, the South Africans, Francois, Joel Stransky. We can sort of now enjoy the memories of our days of playing against each other.
Fitzy, you got me dropped from the All Blacks, obviously, when, you know, at the end of my career, because it was your fault. But besides that tour, you know, the first tour that New Zealand won the series, I mean, you know, I don't have any regrets when I look back on my career, but that must have been an incredible moment. I know we won the 92, but, you know, just coming out of isolation, they probably weren't at their best, although don't repeat that to my South African friends. But, you know, a couple of years in, that win, I can always remember you smacking the ground at the end of that series after winning it. I mean, how amazing was that tour?
Yeah, I suppose the disappointment in '95 and that opportunity we had in '95 to win the World Cup, and, you know, Laurie Mains had done such a phenomenal job of developing that team from '92, and we just fell short in '95, and, you know, John Hart came in and did a phenomenal job of bringing a team together. You know, the management team, Ricardo, and it was the first sort of professional tour in '96, and I think we took 36 players. We had two teams, you know, and it was a proper tour. You know, we went, you know, to Boland, Orange Free State, Western Province, you know, and we had, you know, a 3-test series on the back of a Tri-Nations, which was the last game being in Cape Town at Newlands, and then we went to Kings Park for the start of the series. But just an amazing tour. Yeah, they didn't really like us, but we were quite good in '96, and so was South Africa. They were the current world champions, and we made a real point of making sure all 36 players, all the management, were really involved in making sure we are a successful team. And yeah, sure, you know, that game at Loftus Versfeld, we knew we had to win that. We only just won at Kings Park. I think it was 23-19 or something. And then went to Loftus and knowing we had to win that because Victor, going to Ellis Park in those days for a decider was not really what we were looking for, but you knew what effort we'd put into it, and how much it meant to us. The Don Clarks of the world saying to me, I can now die a happy man knowing the All Blacks have won a Test series in South Africa, with tears in his eyes.
Victor, can you're a bit younger than Sean, a lot younger than Sean. What were your memories of him as a player when you were a young rugby supporter? Did he annoy you?
Yeah, I think, like you said, it was probably someone we love to hate. And probably the two guys I got most respect for in world rugby that's not South African is probably Sean and George Gregan. And both of them were pretty much the same. All the guys love to hate them. And it's funny, now after everything is done, they probably the two guys everyone wants at a function if they come to South Africa. Those are the two guys people want to talk to. They want to hear their stories. They want to hear how they saw South Africa. And I think that gamemanship, that captaincy roles that they play just to try and influence the referees sometimes got under the skin of South Africans. But I think that's what it's about. If you're a top quality player, the opposition supporters shouldn't love you at that time. But and that's what we said, John, we spoke about it. The respect in each country. I think you guys must feel it. Whenever you get to South Africa, there's almost more respect to the All Black players than maybe in New Zealand itself, because people just love the All Blacks. And for me, it was pretty much the same. Whenever I went to New Zealand, if I read the papers, I was like, people in South Africa don't think I'm that good, that what they do in New Zealand. So it was always nice to get over there. When I got back here, everyone was like, why is he standing in the back line? Why doesn't he even get involved in the ruck? So took a lot of abuse there. But 95, we knew Sean was leading that amazing team. And somehow we got that drop call of Joe. It was fantastic for us. But 96 they came over. And unfortunately, I have to say it, New Zealand beat South Africa more than we beat them. So whenever we get the victory over New Zealand, it's really special for us. And that's the ultimate victory you can get.
Victor, has the game survived in some of those smaller towns that we went to? I mean, one of the greatest things about touring South Africa was going to some of those smaller towns like Fitzy mentioned, up on the veldt.
Yeah, I think it dropped away a little bit. I'm sitting here in Rustenburg, and we played the All Blacks here in the Bafokeng Stadium in 2006, and it was packed, and the people loved it. So I think the rugby is still there. Somehow in the last 2-3 years, we started to really look after our club rugby again, getting its own identity as well, away from professional rugby. There's a mine out here in Northern that's the second best club in South Africa at the moment, and I think the town itself is like 100,000 people, but the mine love rugby, the club, they get players in that come and play for them. So, we're trying to grow that club rugby, especially in the smaller towns. So I don't think it's quite the same. I think if the All Blacks go over now and they play Boerland, it won't be a test for the All Blacks. But that's something we're working on. I'm a big believer South Africa can't only have 5 top teams. I think the talent that we've got in South Africa, we should be able to have 6, 7, maybe 8 very strong teams. The big problem for us in South Africa is finances. Can we afford to have 8 teams with 30, let's say, professional players in South Africa? And that, at this stage, is probably our big problem in South Africa.
Sean, what was your approach to referees? I mean, Victor's mentioned it. Did you sort of prepare? Did you get to, you obviously you got to know them. Did you go into a game with a plan that this guy's maybe a bit weak, I'll get under his skin, or this guy's a bit tough, I'll hold back? Did you just freelance it and just be annoying just by nature?
No, my idea, Ricardo, was if you got on well with the referee, in those days we didn't have a referee, a TMO up in the sky. It was the referee who made all the decisions. And if you got on well with him, if he liked you, those 50-50 decisions might go your way. So that was my sort of approach: get on well with the referee, have a beer with him after the game. And I think you mentioned George Gregan, Victor. When he first started playing, he was the complete opposite to me, and I knew that. So I used to wind him up, and then he would go off at the referee. Then the referee would dislike him, and it was perfect. But that was sort of my philosophy. But that took a while. Being a captain is not easy. It's not something you learn overnight. So I think that comes with age. And I knew it annoyed the South Africans. In our days, we didn't warm up on the field. We used to warm up inside. But I'd always make a point of going out and doing a circuit of the ground just to wind the crowd up, basically. And they'd be throwing nachos at me, and I'd go, "Yes, this is great."
Oranges, those old days, oranges.
But that was just the way it was, and I think it's the guys playing today, they know the referees so well, and it's just a way of leading a team, really.
Yeah, it's actually interesting. I heard when Sia took over the captaincy, he was very inexperienced, and Rossi had like a plan for him with every referee. He said, "This is the only two things that you talk to him about. Maybe one positive thing, be in his ear about what he's doing well, and maybe there's one area, let's say maybe a scrum or a prop, and that's the only two things. Other things you just leave him. Other referees, when they're younger, sometimes you can be a little bit more aggressive towards them. They might feel like I need to listen, especially if you're like Sean say, if you're a little bit older, you've been there for a long time. But I think these days, something at the end of my career, even we brought in a referee coach. So he just studied the referee. He knows exactly how you need to talk to him. He knows where his weaknesses are in a game and also where his strengths is. And if you know he's got certain strengths, boost him about it. But if there's certain things that you know he's not sure about, just try and put a picture in his mind. Let's say a scrum of a tight head going in, or a loose head maybe going around the corner, or someone just hinging, and keep on reminding him that's what's happening in the scrum. So I think these days especially, you can still influence the referees.
Is that cheating? Right? Because when you think about it, and this is part of the problem with our game that I'd like to see improve, take a lot less pressure off the referee, less decisions. Because when you come down to the last 5 minutes, as a game, should we be allowed to talk to the referee? Because if you can influence his decision, and I don't disagree with you, Victor, I'd do exactly the same, as you know. But is that like unfairly influencing? I mean, we're seeing that with the players nowadays too, and I think it's a topic that needs to be discussed. Should we just not talk to him?
I actually think the thing that's even worse that's also happening, and I don't know if it's still happening, but at the end of our career, we always had a meeting on the Friday before a game with the referee. So we'd have a few clips, and there's certain things that we want to achieve in the game. Let's say our maul is really strong. We want it to be hard on guys, maybe not sacking it or coming from the side, just putting that pressure. And the big thing there was really to pick one or 2 points that you want him to referee the way you want it. Because, I mean, that's the one thing with referees. If you talk to New Zealand referees, remember, they work a lot with the local clubs or the local unions in their country before a pre-season. And there's certain things those clubs want. And the referees normally are working together with their local teams. And in South Africa, we want certain things. And that's why referees see an interpretation again, certain ways. So whenever you get a referee that you know is not interpreting it something like you wanted to, you need to try and force him to see your picture.
And cheating's a big word, right? And I'm using it on purpose. But like if you can influence, right? If you can influence someone's decision, is it not actually against the law? Is it not against the values of a game and against the law?
You're talking gamesmanship.
Gamesmanship. I think gamesmanship is different to cheating, JK.
Well, no, I'm not. I'm using cheating as probably the wrong word, and I do it on purpose. But what I'm saying to you is that if, like those, I've been to those meetings, Victor, And I thought they were really productive when I was coaching Italy, and we'd have them. And then when you move on a bit, they're just a waste of time because you shouldn't be able to influence the coach. So when's the line between gamesmanship and influence? Like if you've influenced the referee in the last 5 minutes, 2 decisions go your way, and you win the game, what is that?
Maybe in our time, JK, I think you could probably influence the referee in terms of his decision making. I don't think that's the case now, JK. I don't think a decision can be influenced by personalities. I think because there are so many people watching the game now. In our day, JK, it was gamesmanship, and we got better and better at it as we got older. You remember in '92, JK, I didn't know what I was doing. I had to come to you and Foxy and say, how do we do this? And that's just a learning process that happens over the years. You look at Scott Barrett, he's going to be a much better captain this year than he was last year because it's just a learning process. No one is, there's some people are made to be captains. Some people learn. Victor, you talk about Sia. That's a classic example of somebody who's got better with age and experience. And that's the only way you're going to get better is through being in situations that you put under pressure. And dealing with referees is one of those situations that you get better at over the years.
Yeah, JK, we talked about it last week actually as well with, speeding up a game, slowing down a game. We saw this weekend with Edinburgh coming down to the Bulls, playing at altitude, 30 degrees, which they're not used to. And every time there was a break, the Water Boys were on the field, slowing the game down. So those are one of those things where you say, is it against the culture of the game, of what we believe in? But that's been happening for years. There was times where we had really big forwards that couldn't run for 80 minutes. You couldn't put on the bomb squad, so you had to slow it down. And if you somehow can get away with it, then it's good. But if you're the other captain, you need to be in the referee's ears. Please, sir, we need to speed up the game. These guys can't get. That's where experienced leader will have the soft skill just to be able to get something over to the referee. Say, listen, we want to speed up the game. Come on, you need to look at this. Or if you're on the other side, say, listen, my prop's really sore. Although he walked 40 meters before he went down, he just got there, whatever. But that's experienced leader. And that's why you sometimes keep on picking a leader, even if he's maybe not the best in his position anymore.
But this is where I totally disagree, Victor, because I don't think that should not be in our game. That's too much on the referee, right? That's why I want to see. Now, I don't want to see the scrum gone. I don't want to see the maul gone. All I want is that the game is sped up. So if we're like, you think 30 years ago, Fitzy, of course, if I was sitting in the stand and I was South African, I would hate you because I would think that your gamemanship was cheating, right? Because I'd look at you and go, Fitzy, you're unnecessarily influencing the ref. So let's talk about now. My trouble is, Victor, that there's no way that we should be able to influence the game like that by slowing it down or trying to speed it up if it relies on one person. We don't need to change the rules. We just need to enforce them because the interpretation is too widespread for me. So let's get away from the discussion about the bomb squad because I get it. But if that bomb squad then comes on to purposely slow down the game, I look at that and think it's cheating.
No, JK. No. I disagree with you, JK.
Well, that's normal.
Because that's why has Rassie Erasmus and the South African team won the last 2 World Cups?
For the bomb squad, because Rassie,
because they think differently than everyone else.
Totally. That's a different argument. That's a different argument.
So let's talk about the impact off the bench.
That's a different argument, Fitzy.
No, it's not. Because what I'm saying is, if you listened, I'm saying that Rassie Erasmus has changed the face of the game.
JK, as we speak about captains, that's experience, so there's certain referees. If you get a really experienced referee that's when you most of the time just say thank you and you keep listening, because you know you don't want to get under his skin, because then there might be one or two things against you. And he's so strong opinionated about his own view, there's no way you'll be able to influence him. But I think that's what's so nice about rugby. There's all these different things, how coaches look at the game, how they use their bench, how they use their captain to influence a referee, how they want to play a fast game, a slow game. That's why our game is so amazing, because there's all these different things that you try and get to play to your favor. And that's why there's two teams, and both got their own way of doing things. And the one who do it the best win the game.
And JK, you think what we talk about a lot. The way we were doing it yesterday is not good enough to win tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
And that's exactly what Victor's saying. We need to be ahead of the game. Be it, being the number one team in the world for South Africa is not good enough.
I don't know if you understood what I was talking about. What I'm saying is that the reason that South Africa won is Rassie is the most innovative coach that we've had for a long time. He, for me, brought the most innovation to our game. Okay? And I understand the bomb squad and I get it. Do I like it? No, I dislike it, because if the rules were not interpreted and actually just influenced, then he might not do that. If the rules were fast, would he have a bomb squad? If we actually enforce some of these laws so the game sped up, he'll come up with something different. But what I'm saying to you is that what's happening is there's an undue influence by interpretation from one referee, and it's not the referee's fault, to the last 20 referees, right? So I'm not saying that South Africa didn't deserve to win. They weren't innovative around the bomb squad. What I'm saying is I just don't like that you can influence a game by doing that stuff.
You know what? It's about knowing the laws. And I think a lot of coaches coach, but they don't know the letter of the law exactly. And I can tell you, Rassie goes and he studies it. And he knows exactly how to use each and every law to his advantage. I mean, he was the first guy. He was still playing. And I remember the Crusaders were so good from kickoffs because they had all this width, because only two guys in. And he was the first guy that said, listen, guys, if we don't have someone in the ruck, there's no offsides. And I remember we playing the Crusaders one game. The guy made a tackle, rolled out of the thing, and everyone went offside. As 9 passed the ball to 10, the guy was standing next to him because there was no offside line. And Russia has always been like that. So, I mean, putting a bomb squad on where you put 7 guys on, you must know exactly, if there's an injury, isn't there something I can use to get one of my players back? I mean, even if you've got an injury and the guy holds his head and it's really sore, you can't argue. You have to go and you have to replace him. So you need to understand exactly how to play it. Sometimes it's on the edge, but I mean, he knows the letter of the law exactly, and he knows exactly how to use it to his own advantage.
Okay, let's step in here because we're basically having the same argument we had last week. And also, here we are, one of the greatest rugby players of all time, on his birthday, and all we're doing is talking to him about cheating and influencing referees. So, yeah, Fitzy, you're a great player and someone that we all respect a lot. And go and enjoy your birthday. Blow out your 65 candles. And thanks for joining us.
62,
52, man.
Oh, 52.
Oh, he looks 65.
Love you, Fitzy. Have a great day,
You're
mate.
looking well
Enjoy,
too,
brother.
Thanks, guys. Victor, good to
Thanks,
see you.
Sean. So nice to see you.
Okay, buddy.
Right, thanks, Fitzy. And before we go, we've got some big sort of playoffs happening. So first of all, Victor, what's going to happen in the URC playoffs?
Yeah, it's a big weekend. Big game between the Sharks and the Bulls. Look, I hope the Bulls can pull it off. But the Sharks, although they're not playing well, they got the team on paper that can beat any team. I mean, if those guys click on the day, they will be very hard to beat. They've beaten the Bulls twice already this year, so it's not going to be easy. But the other game that I'm actually more interested in is, let's hope Glasgow can upset Leinster again. Semi-finals, finals, they're starting to feel the pressure. So if Glasgow can pull it off, we can have a home final in South Africa. It doesn't matter if it's the Bulls or the Sharks hosting it. So let's go Glasgow.
Can you stop annoying everyone in Ireland, please? Like everyone in Munster wants to kill everyone in the Sharks territory.
To be honest, I actually wish they do well, and I think, although I'm hoping, I think this is the year Leinster's going to win the URC. I think all their focus has shifted to the URC after they got knocked out in the Champions Cup. And I mean, I'm such a big fan of Jacques Nienaber. I think he's right up there with Rusty as the best coach in the world. And I mean, they've played amazing the whole year. They just need to get past this mental block.
And for you, JK, before we go, what's going to happen in the Super Rugby playoffs?
Yeah, I just think to talk about your Bulls just quickly, Victor, like they're going to have to play for 80 minutes because the game I watched on the weekend, you know, they sort of started playing, well, they played 45 minutes and they played bloody well, but you can't let a team like that get away. Look, I'm just really happy the Blues have made it, Ricardo. You know, I think it's been a really tough season for the Blues, so I'm happy they're going to make it. Does that mean they're just going to be satisfied? It's a massive game because they've got the Chiefs, obviously. So for me, you know, the Chiefs have stumbled the last couple of years. If you look on form, the Chiefs should win it. And if the Blues don't, then I'd like them for them to win it. But at the end of the day, they've also had some troubles going into the playoffs. So for me, that's the big game of the weekend. You know, for me, if the Chiefs don't front, then it's going to be a really, really hard one for them to swallow again.
Right, gentlemen. So, you know, good to have that rivalry, New Zealand, South Africa, but also good to maybe agree on 2 things out of 300 discussed today. So, you know, we're taking a step forward, which is really good, and little steps to start with. That's Rivals for this week. We'll catch you again next week.